what's up, everybody? We're at it again. Welcome to Wellness Week Live. I am DJ Anthony. Look, it says it right there. I'm a DJ. So if it says it there, you know it's legit. So my special guest tonight is Murielle. She's our resident therapist and social worker. And you know what? There couldn't be a more befitting time to speak about mind health than the holidays. Right now, it's coming up on us. Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and New Year's, and the whole holiday season. And so this is actually, I was just thinking about this meal before. I was like, oh, this is a great show for tonight because we're on the precipice here of, the holiday season kicking in full swing. And so the next 2 weeks and change are going to be stress, mind health, mental. So what a better person than you to be on. So thanks for joining me, Murielle. Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome.
I wanted to touch on a couple of things, and you and I, we met, some while ago, and I was impressed speaking to you, and I'm like, oh, I got to have her on. And one of the things that I love to talk about on this channel is really mental health. And I don't like to say mental because, and I already told you this, but I tell everybody this, when you say the word mental, it's a non-starter. Everyone's like, oh, you're crazy. And it's just so disingenuous. It's such a immature. It's like, so I say mind health because, as we talked about this. We all have a mind. We all have a brain. If you have a brain and you have a mind, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? If not now, eventually at some point, you're going to have a mind health, aka mental health issue, 100%. Because you can sprain an ankle, you have a cavity, you have a heart problem. Guess what? Your brain, your mind is part of your body. It's normal. It happens. So I hate when, I don't even like when people use the word mental. It's so misguided and immature. I think it should be mind health. So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this one. So what do you think about my statement? Not mental health, mind health. Shouldn't we change that?
I agree because it is creating like a stigma, because when people hear like mental, they automatically start thinking depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, which there's a lot of like other disorders. So I prefer the, mind because it's more positive and there's no negative, thought behind that.
Right. And by the way, even if somebody was schizophrenic or bipolar or depression, again, it's okay to have triple bypass surgery on your heart. Mm-hmm. It's okay to break your arm. It's okay to have cataracts. It's okay to have meningitis. I say okay, meaning like, oh, well, no, of course, you can have that. But you can't be bipolar. You can't have depression. You can't have seasonal depression. You can't be anxious. You can't. And I tell everybody this, and I know I told you before too, even myself. I had to go to therapy many, many years ago because I was, suffering from obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. And people joke about this, like, I'm so OCD. And I'm like, bro, you don't know. You do not know. Don't even joke, because yours truly, DJ Anthony, I struggled with it for years. And my particular label or my particular, what do you call it, strain, if you will, of OCD was germaphobia, ironic for today's day and age of COVID. So I would always wash my hands. And, we can joke and be like, come on. But it was ruining my life. The stress was, backbreaking. And I think that's when you should at least think I need help. When you lose the enjoyment of life, you can't, or you're struggling to function, So I went to go get the help I needed. It wasn't mental. It was, I went to a mind health. I went to go see whatever you want to call it, a life coach, a therapist, a priest, a rabbi, an imam, whatever, a psychologist, psychiatrist. For me, it was someone who specialized in OCD. It was a psychologist, and we did cognitive therapy. And we're going to talk about that, cognitive therapy. So cognitive therapy is and we'll touch on this, but, basically verbalization, talk, coaching through, and you even see athletes do this, how to be a better hockey player, basketball player, football player, through your mind. Mind is so important. So I was able to crack that code, and I no longer suffer with, the obsessive compulsive, wanting to always wash my hands, or my hands clean, my hands clean, my hands clean, my hands clean. So, and again, we throw that around very loosely. So I think, right. Not only is it okay to have a mind health issue or seasonal depression or whatever, anxiety, stress, we're human. We're supposed to break. We're supposed to rebuild, stand up. And to your point, there shouldn't be a negative connotation about it. Exactly. No matter what it is, even if it's schizophrenia, even if it was postpartum from a woman having a baby, like there's nothing to be ashamed about. Just as there's no shame about having heart disease or having, God forbid, cancer or whatever, broken arm. So anyways, So I'm glad we're on the same page there about, yeah, but words matter, you know, and to throw it around flippantly like, mental health. It's like, so let me ask you this question. So in your line of work, so what is it? It seems like you do a lot of different things, but what is, I guess, your concentration? Like, what do you typically work with when you're working with your clients or people?
Well, I've done a lot of like counseling for over 20 years, but my current job is working in home therapy. So I provide therapy for family with children with disability, whether it's like mental or just behavioral. So that's what my job is right now.
Okay. And children, when you say children, like how young is children?
Um we're talking between the ages of like 5 maybe to 17.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's important, I think, you know, for parents to realize. I think sometimes we don't pay attention to our kids, or the kids in our family. We think, they're just a kid. Shut up. Like you're only to be taken serious once you're like 18 or 19 or something like that. And to your point of what you're working and what you're doing is, the sooner we take it serious, the quicker you can nip it in the bud. If
Right.
you start to see a child having a problem with whatever, you
Hmm.
know, 5, 6, 7, you address it. But I think it's more tricky because if we see that our child has a problem with their eyes or they can't walk straight, that's visual. We can see that. So, okay, we'll take them to the doctor. But if your kid is 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 and they're having a mind health issue,
Hmm.
it's not tangible. So, like, sometimes I think it's almost not too late, but I don't know how else to say it. Maybe it's sometimes, yeah, we act too
I
late.
think you know what it is? It can be confusing to a lot of parents because it's like that's usually the childhood development. So technically we can easily look at a kid who's like hyperactive and just think like, well, he might have ADHD, so it could just be anything. It can be that he's hyperactive or maybe there's some, subline of him actually having, ADHD. So it can be, like confusing to families. So that's why usually the social worker comes in, kind of evaluates, figure out if this is just a childhood development or is there some underlying issues going on.
Right. Yeah. Good point. Especially I would imagine even with puberty, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah, they're just 13 going through their changes. It's like, well, maybe
Mm-hmm.
they are, maybe they're not,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I would encourage any parent to not be dismissive of it because
Right.
you just don't know what they're struggling with. And a lot of times, people struggle with mind health issues in private because there's a shame, there's a stigma, I'm crazy, and you're
Mm-hmm.
not, but I think it's incumbent upon our families, our schools, our communities to say what we're saying. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to have that problem. It's okay to break an arm. It's okay to have
Right.
bronchitis. Not okay that you want it, but it's okay. We address it, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, but let me. So, what? This is kind of a rhetorical question, but kind of a softball here. But just to remind people. But so, what part does drugs and alcohol, beer and vodka and wine, what part do drugs play in people's mind health? I mean, is it something you see as prevalent, or is it kind of, what role does it play? Do you see in your practice?
Usually it's because of coping, because a lot of like individuals, even youths too, they don't want to like actually deal, or maybe dealing with their emotion can be more like extremely difficult. So it's just easy to kind of numb the feeling like, okay, if I drink, then I go to sleep and then I don't have to think about this problem tonight. And then if the problem resurfaces in the morning because now the alcohol has weared off, right? Or any drug, then you're going to end up doing it tomorrow and the
Mm.
next day. So then it becomes like a habit. So usually it's a method of, coping. It's very bad coping, but it's the only thing that, somebody would know how to cope.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I have, I think we all know people who,
Hmm.
um, I'm thinking about people in my circle. It's like, oh yeah, that person's always unwinding with
Right.
like, benign glass of wine, glass of
Mhm.
beer, hey, a little shot of bourbon, but it's every night without fail.
Mhm.
It's like it's one thing, you drink on a Saturday maybe, but and I think this is the key too. You would probably concur. It's like you look for patterns,
Of course.
right? So, uh, and unfortunately, in our country, probably in many parts of the world, it's okay. Hey, beer, it's fine. Not a big deal. I've lost friends to beer, literally beer only.
Wow.
Drunk
Mhm.
driving.
Right.
Dead, boom, from beer only. So I mean, and to people who would say, well, but coffee's a drug too. Yeah, last time I checked, police don't have coffee checkpoints.
True.
They have alcohol checkpoints. So yeah, and it's also, think about, right, all the people who their lives are ruined
Hmm.
from beer, from alcohol, but they're not dead,
Right.
but they're struggling, and I have in my mind now, I'm thinking like, oh my God, yeah, I know this person, that person, that person. But it's okay. It's acceptable because, these
Right.
commercials are on sporting events, these commercials on billboards about, beers and liquors. Hey, it's not a big deal. It's not, but so, yeah. So you brought up an
Become
interesting.
horrible bad too, because in some sense like they use it to cope, but then when you really sit back and think about the underlining situation, if you have like a mind health situation and then you are doing, engaging in addiction behavior, now you have two things you have to worry about. Now
Right.
you develop an addiction based on the fact that you're trying to, handle your mindset. So it's kind of like it becomes a bigger problem when it just started out to be something so small. You know what I mean?
I 100% know what you mean. I know it very, very well. I have lost loved ones, to multiple loved ones too. Uh, yeah. I mean, and I think they do that because,
Hmm.
again, the stigma. I can't
Right.
talk to anybody. I can't talk to my parents. I can't talk to the coach. I can't talk to the teacher. I can't talk to the priest, the rabbi, the
Hmm.
imam. I can't talk to us because I'm crazy. I'm crazy. People will look down on me. And I mean, people could lose their jobs too for that. Like I was just looking at a stat. I mean, here, I'm going to rattle this off. And you don't think this would be the case, but um, in the United States of America, an estimated, and I don't mean to like laugh at this,
Yeah.
but
Oh, I get it.
that's an estimated 300 to 400 doctors, medical doctors, die each year by suicide.
Hmm.
And these doctors are not going to look for help because, God
No,
forbid, someone finds out they saw a therapist.
you know what? It's
Now they
also
may lose their job, they may not, but
true.
there's that fear there.
But it's true because you know what it is with the amount of work that they have to do is very stressful. But
Of course.
I'm noticing now during the COVID, it's much
Oh,
higher.
oh
It's
my God.
extremely high because they're overworked. They don't really have time for themselves. But I don't even think it's just the overwork. I think it's just like the amount of fluctuation of like patients coming in. It's so overwhelming. I don't think they can even grasp the idea of like, how do I save this person, this person, this? It's like it's just piling on top of each other that it can just, at some point you just have a breakdown moment.
Nurses, doctors,
Yeah.
therapists,
Oh, especially therapists. Yeah,
yeah.
especially.
And again, even in a good year, they're
Mhm.
not allowed, wink, wink, they can, but we all know they can't because
Right.
if word gets out to their higher ups,
Hmm.
you saw a therapist. Oh, you're mentally not well. Like,
Right.
do you want that person doing an operation on you? Which is so, again, it's so disingenuous, so immature. But
Hmm.
no, okay, let's not let the doctor not go seek help because that's great. Yeah, because when they're
Right.
operating on you, then they're going to be a tip top form. It's like, so they hide behind, you name it, whatever you want to, they hide behind the beer and the alcohol and the
Yeah.
drugs.
It's like, for example, like, because even, what I failed to mention too, like social workers get stigmatized too, working with certain types of patients. Because years ago, when I was an HIV counselor, I was being stigmatized as working, with HIV patients. So,
Oh yeah,
yeah, completely stigmatized. So I remember we had to take a course on stigma for the counselors because, just walking with a badge that just says the title of what you do for a living,
right,
people have these pre-notions and assumption of like, why would you work with them? Do you have that? I don't understand. you know
right.
like,
There's a whole. I'm sure not to get into that rabbit hole, but there's a
right,
whole, uh, you know, backdrop of the religious connotation of it. Like,
right,
religious people might look down on you
of
just for
course,
working with that, right?
of course.
Like, yeah. I mean, it's sad, right?
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, that could be a whole nother show about, right? Uh, working with minority of minority groups, the
Yeah.
gender community, and right, you were talking about HIV, or working with people who, whatever, like minority groups, but it's, yeah. Again, also, it's like, well, that's, like I said, a whole nother show probably, but I also say, like, hey, these are our sisters, our brothers, our cousins, our aunts, our uncles, your friends. You think, people people think they know their family and friends, and they do to a certain extent, but you don't know if someone's struggling, because again, people don't want to speak sometimes, and we think we know everybody, but in a way we don't, because of the stigma. And that's why I wanted to do this show in general, but also this particular topic, and I talk about it a lot, is, again, these are our family and friends. I had my grandfather, who was an immigrant from Italy. He has passed away a long time ago, but my nonno, they say in Italian, which means grandfather. And I don't know, well, actually I do know. He suffered from, I mean, this might be genetic, I don't know, but he suffered from OCD, hand washing. And I remember as a child, we would always make fun of him. Oh, nonno's always washing his hands, and it was bad. Like, now I look back, I'm like, my heart breaks for him, because there's no way he was going to see help. Like, this is an old school dude from Italy, World War II vet. Like, hell no, is he going to be like, I need help? But he suffered, and it was for all of us to see. And he would do stuff that we just thought was like very funny, like, oh, he doesn't want to touch the doorknob. He's using his wrist or his arm, and I said to myself, now I know, because I went through that. It's debilitating.
Of course,
you can't pray it away.
No,
you can't wish it away. I know, I tried. You can pray all day long. Ain't going. You need to get help. Whatever it may be. Again, anxiety, depression, stress, and we all need it. And if the problem comes in, like we're talking about, is when you start hiding behind the beer, the wine, the shots, the whatever, the pot, the drugs, and the junk food, or watching TV for 30 hours a day. There's only 24 hours in a day, but you know what I mean? Like, right. To your point, I just want to go to sleep. It's helping me cope, but it's not. You're creating another problem. Right. Anyway, not to go on and on about that. But.
It makes sense. It actually does. All of the addiction adds all together. Yeah. Even cigarettes and like caffeine drinking. That's another thing too. Yeah.
100%. Right. Caffeine drinking, whatever. That's the opposite of alcohol. It's boosting you up. It's getting you wired.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah. But my thing though is like the stigma of it. My grandfather didn't get that chance. If anything, we made fun of him. And I look back, and I was a kid. I didn't know, but none of us knew. And I tell my family now, I'm like, didn't you see? No had that. Don't you see? And a lot of people are like, I don't know. I'm like, yeah, he suffered. No, he didn't suffer. Are you kidding me? Like, I promise you he suffered. I promise you. But and we still have this fight going on in this country. You name it: nurses, police officers, teachers, doctors, moms, dads, single people, whatever. You're not allowed to talk about it. It's better to just die, go suffer in a corner, and that's just not right. So it's I'll keep on having this conversation until I die. No, I mean, it's important.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this next one now. So, we're talking about stats, statistics. This is another one. People think, well, if you go for mental help, you're crazy and you're a mass murderer. Because if you have a mental health problem, whatever it is, you're stressed, you're bipolar, whatever, right? You're going to shoot a school up. And I said to somebody, that's funny. Maybe people who shoot schools up and do bad things, maybe they're just bad people. Did anybody ever think of that one? You know what I mean? I understand they could have mental health issues, no doubt. But no one ever stops to think, maybe they're just bad people. No, can't be. Okay. So it's just like, come on, statistically speaking, people who have mental health issues, this, are of less danger to society than normal people. Okay. I mean, when you look at who's killing who's robbing who's beating who, I mean, these are people with no mental issues.
Of course.
They're either in gangs or in the mafia, or they're in whatever. They're, people who are angry, road raging. I mean, these people are killing by the thousands every year. So we just pay attention to that one person who does that one crazy, rightfully so, one crazy thing that's like mass. And they may be crazy, but people who have mental health issues are statistically less likely to hurt anyone, only themselves, if anybody.
True.
But our society is not well read on this, and they just go for the clickbait and the person shot up this place. They're crazy. Again, maybe they're probably even not even crazy. These evil people who shoot up things, they're probably just evil.
But
But
you see how the stigma still continues that they actually use that to identify criminals. Like you see the identity behind that. Like people
meaning what?
just like, like stereotype criminals as like having mental health problem. But honestly speaking, some actually do because they have personality
And
disorder.
I'm not saying that right. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying that bad people don't have right. Some people who do shoot up schools are mentally ill, no
Right.
doubt. But just because you have a mental illness doesn't
Doesn't
mean,
mean you should. Exactly. That's true too.
statistically speaking, they don't. I mean,
Hmm.
if there's whatever 30 million mentally ill people, 30 million, 40 million, 50 million mentally ill people in this country, last time I checked, 30 million people are not shooting up
Right.
schools. Yeah. But it's a correlation and a causation kind of
Hmm.
thing. But you were saying about the right when they try to or they say that they're crazy, these
Oh
shooters.
yeah, that part. Yeah, sorry. No, because it's actually true. Like they feel like they have to still stigmatize, mind health as a reason for why people do certain things. And
Right.
I actually agree with you because some people just do certain things because they want to just do certain things. And sometimes these things can be very impulsive. So they feel like they have to entertain this impulsivity and then, tailor it to something else. Like, well, who in their right mind can become this kind of person?
Right.
And there's a reason behind that.
Right. We always look for the boogeyman in it when
Mm.
it could be just very simple, but it's hard for us Americans to swallow. Maybe
Mhm.
they get bad.
Mhm.
How about this one? People say, they're possessed by the devil. Here we go again. It's
Yeah.
always convenient to put it on something else or someone else. Maybe they're just a bad person. No,
Exactly.
impossible. Like it's convenient to say the devil made me do it because it
Mhm.
involved the person from their evil doings. No, no, no. They're a bad person. Don't blame the
Mhm.
devil. They're a bad person. They made a choice most of the time. And again, I get it. There are people who are mentally not right and mentally ill, and they do crazy things, no
Right.
doubt. Or they're under the influence of drugs, where they're typically not mentally ill, but when you do drugs, certain
Mhm.
drugs can make you lose it.
Mhm.
So again, but yeah, it's we're always looking for this boogeyman or other thing. When listen, I'd make the argument. I'm going to really thread the needle here.
Okay.
When people when there are people on Earth with fancy suits and they're very fancy and they're very fancy and they're high up there on the totem pole. They're fancy with the power of their pen. They
Right.
kill people. Okay, thousands. Do we say that that person's crazy? Because you have a nice suit on and you speak eloquently, but they're doing evil acts out there by the power of their pen.
Mhm.
Whatever, you can all read into that as you like. But my
Oh,
point is,
yeah.
it's convenient to throw the person with the messed up hair with like
Mhm.
pink lashes, like ooh, like
Yeah.
it's just so immature. And again, I get it. People who are mentally ill do mentally crazy. I get that, but most people who are mentally ill are of no harm to anyone
This is
other
a.
than themselves, and they're not to be feared.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I agree with you 100% with that. That's true
yeah.
because 9 out of 10 time, like, one who has like, situations is usually internal. It doesn't really go externally. I mean, it depends on the extent of it all, but usually it's internalized.
Right. Listen, I DJ for a living. This is what I do full time. Okay.
Hmm.
I've done thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of events. I've
Right.
seen more violence from just regular old dudes I mean, bad violence. I
Right.
mean, I don't know. No one said they were crazy. I mean,
Hmm.
you know, I mean, stuff where arrests had to happen, riots, and everything. I mean, I've seen a lot, and
Hmm.
I'm just like, yeah, okay, that's a bad person, like, and maybe they're mentally ill, maybe they're not, probably not,
Hmm.
but I know they could have been drinking or whatever, but we don't stigmatize them and say, oh, they're crazy, it's like, and what about thinking to ourselves, well, how did that person get there, you know? Uh,
True.
this didn't happen overnight. Whoever
True.
it is, 17, 18-year-old, 30-year-old, 40, 50-year-old,
Hmm.
that did a crazy thing. I say, to some level, we are all responsible as a society, as a family, as a community, as a town, as a
Hmm.
city, as a state, as a country, because we live next to each other.
Of
So
course.
when I see this young person suffering, I say, what did we do as a society to fail that person? Of course, they have their own. They are responsible for what they did, no doubt.
Hmm.
But it does take a village. It does take a team to either make someone or break someone,
Hmm.
because we're all born babies, innocent,
Hmm.
neutral, but things happen along the way.
Of course.
What happens? I, here's a stat. Let's talk about veterans suicides. I mean, we all hear this. Uh, the the veterans, 6,000 or more veterans commit suicide every year. That didn't happen overnight. Something happened. They went to war or involved in something, so there's always a correlation and linkage. Nothing happens by itself.
No, it's the exposure of whatever trauma they actually experience. Yeah, that's
Oh,
what actually happens. It's the exposure of the trauma.
of course.
Yeah,
And,
that.
and by the way, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No, because usually with, trauma related, it's not something that people just openly discuss. Usually that's something that becomes internal. And when it's not addressed internally, then you start to see the behaviors outwardly. And then you start to question what is wrong with this individual. And 9 out of 10 times, there's two things going on with the individual. Either A, they're aware about their situation, or two, they just don't have a clue
Right.
of what's
Listen,
going on.
and I have friends of mine who are vets, and some of them are not suffering, and some of them are.
Mhm.
And by the way, when you say trauma, I know you would agree to this. Trauma is relative to the person.
Right.
There are veterans that have experienced trauma, but not necessarily on the front lines, like knifing people to death. There was a big article about U.S. veterans who were drone operators who were flying aerial drones in Florida, but doing missions in the Middle East, and they have their type of trauma. And that's valid.
Right.
Who are we to say, well, you didn't fight in World War II on D-Day, so shut up?
Yeah.
No, trauma is relative and valid to who the person is and how they experience it at the time they experience it. We are not to marginalize that, because everyone sees it differently for whatever situation they're in. Doesn't matter, workplace, personal life, and it's okay if someone goes through something and they don't experience trauma. That's fine too. If it doesn't bother you, whatever it may be, in the workplace or military or whatever, and don't beat yourself up over it either, but you are suffering, don't marginalize your feelings too.
Right.
You matter, your life matters, your experience matters. It could be anything, it could be elementary school trauma, whatever. But I think especially men,
Yes.
you're told to suck it up, be a sissy. At least in some of the circles I run in, it's like that. It's like, shut up. And it's like, okay, well, I know a lot of people who ended their life too, who are very tough guys.
Of course.
And I don't know. I mean, so it's, I think a tough guy is someone who goes and gets the help. That's a brave thing to do, to say, I need help. But it's a tough thing to do initially.
Well, it actually is. I agree 100%. It is very difficult because it's like, being brought up, you're taught to not feel anything, not have any emotion, just deal with it. Like you said, like tough it up, but you can't necessarily do that, because the more it's like, I don't know, what it kind of reminds me of, and I use this metaphor. It's like a soda, like when you shake the soda and it's just fizzing and it's just fizzing, but the cap is on, and eventually it's like a person's emotion. You're just shaking it, throwing it all over the place. And once the cap comes off, what happens to the soda? It spills over.
Yeah.
It's like a person's behavior. Like when you internalize it so much, it just spills over at some point.
100%. Yeah. And by the way, if I ever cut you off.
No, you never did.
Thank you, because some of my friends like, Anthony, just shut up and let people talk. I'm like,
No,
dude,
no.
I let people talk. I have a nickname, by the way. I'm not kidding. They call me King Interruptus. So I'm very cognizant of this. So my friend Ed was like, can I just suggest, please? He was very diplomatic about it. I'm like, Ed, are you telling me to shut the F up? Is that what you're telling me? Okay.
No.
So anyway, good. You heard it. Murielle said I'm not going to. But yeah, and we're coming down to the end of the half hour. But I got to have you back on, because
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important. All the things, mind health is so important. And nutrition. I mean, I don't know about you, but I know for me, just my everyday stress, I try to eat things that will help my stress. So omega-3 fatty acids. I eat a lot of salmon, a lot of avocado. I mean, do you have any kind of health practice or thing that you do that you find helps you? Like, I don't know, green tea or something. Is there anything that you eat or?
I do. I mean, nutrition is important. Yes. Like yoga, using the gym, meditation. Yes, that's very important. But it depends, because some people do meditation.
Right. So the gym is something for you.
Yeah. The gym will be, something, support system, like friends, family, things like that would just keep you preoccupied for the time.
Well, and we all know, and it's funny you mentioned it, because I compete in tennis tournaments. I coach tennis. Ooh. Yeah, I have a million jobs. My whole goal in life is not to get a real job. Anyways, but to your point, we all know this for a scientific fact. When you're exercising, even just walking, it releases endorphins. It makes you happy.
Right.
Period. So when you mention the gym, I've anything that's probably the best thing. Either go join a gym or go out for a walk every day or
Hmm.
walk in place at home, whatever it is. But funny you mentioned that. Yeah. So exercise is so key, not only
Very.
for our heart and our muscles, but if
Hmm.
anything, the mind. And people forget that, like they think working out is only good for muscles. It's
Hmm.
also good for the brain. So,
It's true.
so it's interesting you mentioned that about your one of your things you do is exercise, and
Hmm.
so yeah, so basically, and good. So we're basically done with time, but I want to encourage everyone too to just breathe for the holidays. If there's a toxic situation, just excuse me, I have to go outside for. I have to use the bathroom. Like just don't. I know there's always people in our circles during the holidays. You're like, oh, that person stresses me out.
Yes.
Just be just step aside or go to the other side of the room or whatever. The stress is going to come to the next couple of days are going to be like everyone's going, I'm sure, nuts already. I was on the highway earlier today and I was getting stressed. I'm like, oh my God, everybody's out running around like crazy and it's driving me crazy. I had to stop some of my chores and just say, I'm going home. I'll address
That's
it.
actually a smart thing to do. Yes. Yeah. If you're
I'll
already
take care
stressed,
of
then
another
take
time.
that back. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
But yeah, so Murielle, thank you so much. I
Thank
want to
you.
respect your time. Happy holidays to everybody. Thanks for checking out Wellness Week live. And don't forget, these are just conversations, everyone. We're not giving medical advice or legal advice. Always check with your healthcare professional. This is just, two conversations between friends, as all the other shows are. And don't forget, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the notification, share, tell a friend. I need more viewers. I'm insecure. So, but anyway, so yeah, thanks a lot. I'd love to have you back on again. And happy holidays. And I'm going to be signing off. Thank you, Murielle.
Thank you, Anthony.
Okay, here we go. 5, 4,